Mechanoreception. Specialized sensory receptors for both hearing and balance are mechanoreceptors. It's expected for you to be able to label such a diagram. The pinna at the left is the floppy outer part that channels sound into the auditory canal. The auditory canal contains glands which secrete earwax to limit dust, insects, bacteria, and other foreign particles from getting too far into the ear. The tympanum, or tympanic membrane or eardrum, vibrates against the ossicles in response to sound waves. The ossicles, the three smallest bones in the body, are fully developed at birth, the malleus, incus, and stapes. Each acts to amplify the vibration of the tympanum. The stapes vibrates against the oval window of the inner ear. Cochlea, Latin for snail, is the fluid-filled structure lined with mechanoreceptors converting the vibrational sound waves coming in from the oval window into action potentials, leaving by way of the auditory nerve. Sound interpretation is done at the temporal lobe of the brain. So the pinna is the outside flap. It enhances sound vibrations, channeling them into the ear. They contain varying amounts of cartilage, which shapes the ear to enhance sound vibrations. The auditory canal amplifies sound. Only about 2.5 centimeters long, it leads to the tympanic membrane. The auditory canal has hairs and earwax that limit foreign particle transmission to the rest of the ear. Subcutaneous glands secrete a sticky goo to trap dust, insects, bacteria, etc. Keeping the earwax out by regular Q-tipping might not be too advisable. The tympanum vibrates in response to sound waves. The tympanum marks the beginning of the middle ear. The middle ear is an air-filled space. The eardrum or tympanic membrane is a round elastic structure that vibrates to sound waves. The ossicles are the malleus, incus, and stapes, bones that are fully formed at birth and are the body's smallest bones. Each bone acts as a lever for the next, resulting in amplified vibrations. Sound vibration is 30 times the amplification. The eustachian tube equalizes air pressure between the middle ear and the outside. It's a thin tube that connects the middle ear to the pharynx at the back of the mouth. Imbalances in pressure causes discomfort. Infections causing mucus buildup in the eustachian tube can cause impaired hearing and affect the sense of balance. In the inner ear, it contains the sensory receptors for balance and hearing. The three interconnecting structures of the middle ear are the semicircular canals and vestibule for balance and cochlea for hearing. The three interconnecting structures of the inner ear are the semicircular canals and vestibule for balance and cochlea for hearing. We'll talk about balance later. The cochlea is where the mechanical energy is converted into action potentials, a fluid-filled structure where vibrations felt at the oval window from the stapes are converted to pressure waves in the fluid. To view the hearing organ of the inner ear, the two chambers are separated by the cochlear duct, which contains the organ of Corti. The basilar membrane responds to the vibrations from the oval window, causing it to move up and down, bending the hairs against the tectorial membrane. The mechanoreceptors are the hair cells, and an action potential is generated when they bend, which is propagated along the auditory nerve. The hair cells respond to varying intensities of sound, enabling us to detect changes in volume. So the organ of Corti is the organ of hearing. A cross-section of the cochlea reveals 3 chambers. The middle one contains the organ of Corti, the hardware responsible for the conversion of sound waves into action potentials. Sound vibrations from the middle ear make pressure waves in the cochlea, causing the basilar membrane to move. Since the cochlea is fluid-filled, the sound waves make pressure waves. The base of the middle chamber of the cochlea is called the basilar membrane and moves up and down in response to the pressure waves. This results in the hair cells attached to the basilar membrane to bend against the tectorial membrane. The bend generates an action potential. The hair cells are the mechanoreceptors that convert the movement of the basilar membrane into action potentials. The terminal end of the hair cells have projections called stereocilia, which are embedded in the upper tectorial membrane. The stereocilia of the hair cells bend in response to the movement of the basilar membrane. Different frequencies stimulate different parts of the cochlea, which in turn stimulates different regions of the temporal lobe of the cerebral cortex. Just like you have binocular vision for depth perception, you have stereo hearing that perceives whether sound is not only left or right, but also front or behind. The organ of Corti distinguishes both frequency and intensity of sound waves. A frequency range is the distance between the very bass notes and the very treble notes. Intensity is the volume. We can only hear within a certain range of frequencies. If we could hear beyond that, the low-frequency sound of our blood running through the vessels of our ears would be audible, and the high-frequency sound of dog whistles would get our attention. Sustained sound intensities of 80 decibels, like city traffic for 8 hours straight, can damage the hair cells of the organ of Corti. Intense sounds create a larger number of action potentials. Following the refractory period, the next action potential is hot on the heels of the previous one. One-way pain is interpreted by the frequency of action potentials along a nerve. Different frequencies are picked up by different hair cells along the length of the cochlea, and resulting action potentials terminating at different positions in the temporal lobe. The treble notes vibrate the hair cells near the beginning of the cochlea next to the oval window. The bass notes vibrate the hair cells farther down the cochlea.